Hi everyone, welcome to Today at Sci-Port. I'm your gracious host, Greg Andrews, the Planetarium Manager. Thank you very much for joining me for this session of Starry Night. Today, we're going to be highlighting some of the astronomy objects found within the constellations of Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. If you have a question, feel free to comment below, or you can always email me at gandrews@sciport.org. Let's get started. We're going to start off by taking a look at Ursa Minor. If you recall, Ursa Minor and the Little Dipper are the same thing. Let's bring up the stick form. And when it comes to viewing this constellation, it is a faint constellation, so dark skies are recommended in order to view it. Now, if you're like me, most people can actually see 3 of the 7 stars. You can point out this one at the end of Ursa Minor, and then the 2 stars along the front end of Ursa Minor. The 4 remaining stars are just very dim. And if you're like me, you have to use your imagination, wink wink, in order to see them. The most important star in this constellation would be the one at the end, and this star is known as Polaris. But we also identify it as the North Star. Let's take a look at why this star gets so much recognition. Imagine you spend all night looking at the stars, and you trace out the path of each star. You'll notice that stars will rise in the east and they set in the west. But there's another star that seems to stay in one spot the entire night, and that is this star. And that star is what we call Polaris. Ancient observers noticed this star and noticed that it served as a pivot point of the nighttime sky, so they called it the pole star, or what we nowadays know as Polaris. The other reason why we call it the North Star is because this also is in that northern part of the sky. So in essence, this star points true north for us. So remember that Polaris and the North Star are the same thing, and all it is it serves as a pivot point of the nighttime sky for us. Because this star can be used to give directions, it was a very important aspect of observations to sailors. This star had multiple names throughout the epochs of time. It was known as the Star of the Seas, or the Star of the Ship, or the Steering Star, and so on and so forth. A fun fact about this star is not going to remain the North Star forever. Over the passage of time, there are going to be other stars that will actually serve as our pivot stars or pole stars. I mentioned that there are essentially 3 stars that are visible in Ursa Minor. Remember, the other 4 are quite faint. Polaris is one of those 3 stars. The other 2 lie on the other side of the stick form of Ursa Minor, and those 2 stars are Cocab and Furcab. Let's take a look at Cocab first. Cocab is an orangish colored star. It's hard to make out the color with your eyes, but using a binocular or telescope, you can be able to see this orange hue. The other star is known as Furcad, and this one is one that you can use to test out your eyesight. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, but if you have really good eyesight, you can actually see that this star is actually not 1 but 2 stars, known as Furcad Major and Furcad Minor. Okay? If you can't see it, don't worry about it. One star is bluish in color, and the other one is a orangish color. See if you can check those out by using your binoculars or telescopes. What I like about these stars in general, let me zoom out here, is both of these 2 stars, Furcad and Cocab here, are collectively known as the guardian stars. The reason for that is, as I mentioned before, when it comes to Ursa Minor, the main stars that you can see in it are Polaris and then these 2 stars along the front. And therefore, the remaining stars are difficult to see. Hence, these were known as the guardian stars because they guard the North Star. And remember, the North Star, or Polaris, is a very important star. We now turn our attention to the constellation of Ursa Major. The most popular aspect about this is, of course, the Big Dipper. And although we call this group of stars the Big Dipper, over time it has also been known to be called the Wagon, the Plow, the Bull's Thigh, the Government, the Great Cart, the Chariot, and a host of other names. Now, I'm going to show you all what I think is personally the best combination of stars in the constellation of Ursa Major, and this star is known as Mizar. At first glance, you'll look at it, you'll see it's one star. But if the skies are clear enough and you don't have to have super keen eyesight, just average to slightly above average eyesight, you'll be able to split this star. In other words, you will be able to see that this star is not one, but actually two stars. And collectively, they are known as Mizar and Alcor. And this is a great example of a double star. Let me elaborate on this double star reference. We can have a pair of stars that we classify as a true double star, or a binary system. In other words, it's two or more stars, perhaps, that are going around a common center, or they are orbiting each other. Then you can have stars such as Mizar and Alcor that you see in this image, and this is what you call a visual double or an optical double. In other words, they look like they're close by each other, but in reality, these two stars are separated by a very vast distance. They are not interacting with each other at all. It's just from our line of sight, it looks like they are by each other. And this is what Mizar and Alcor are. And then you can have another type of binary system, and this is called a spectroscopic binary. And what this is a star that by direct observation, in other words, looking at it with your eyes or binoculars or a telescope, you cannot discern that there is another star. So it still looks like one single star. But we can use what is called a spectrum to be able to observe the star. And based off this evidence, we can actually understand that there is another star nearby. We just can't see it directly, but we know it's there because of the other indirect evidence. The star Mizar and Alcor also hold some other surprises that were discovered in later observations. Again, at first glance, it just looks like two stars, but with a highly powerful telescope, you can actually detect more stars. And using spectroscopy, you can detect even more stars. There's a total of about 6 stars within this Mizar-Alcor system. The name Mizar used to translate to mean apron or cover, and the name Alcor used to translate to mean the forgotten one or the neglected one. But nowadays, this translates to mean the horse, Mizar, and the rider, Alcor. So see if you can find the horse and the rider in the sky tonight. In addition to Mizar and Alcor, there are 2 other stars that help to create the tail of Ursa Major. The first one is Alioth, and the other one is known as Alkaid. If you have binoculars or a telescope, please, I encourage you, go check out the rest of the stars of Ursa Major. Not just the ones that make up the Big Dipper, but also include those that make up the main body of Ursa Major. You'll find out that several of them have companion stars. Some of these are visual double stars, in other words, 2 stars that look like they're close by each other, but they're actually very, very, very far apart. And you also have true binary stars, and that is 2 stars that are actually orbiting around one another. In fact, this star is known as Alula Australis, and this star has a historical notation. This was the first true double star to have its orbital period calculated. There are 2 stars going around each other, and in the year 1828, scientists were able to use math and physics to calculate for the first time the orbits of stars going around each other. And the period or the amount of time it takes for the 2 stars to go around each other is about 60 years. In case you were not aware, today is marking the 30th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope. On April 24, 1990, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched on board the shuttle Discovery, and the next day it was deployed and it began its 30-year run of observing the universe. Happy birthday, Hubble! We're going to commemorate that by taking a look at a galaxy that the Hubble Space Telescope observed in 2006. And in fact, it observed this galaxy as a way to help celebrate its 16th birthday. The name of this galaxy is called the Cigar galaxy. And as you can see by the oblong shape, it clearly looks like a cigar. But not only is this galaxy known for its shape, it's also known for its wonderful array of colors and as well its star production. Let me show you what I mean by that. In previous sessions, I have talked about the Whirlpool Galaxy, the Cone Nebula, and the Orion Nebula, and I discussed their properties as well as their colorful aspects. Those same attributes can be applied to the Cigar Galaxy. The Cigar Galaxy is 12 million light years away from us, and it has a diameter of 37,000 light years, which is about 1/4 the size of our own Milky Way galaxy. This galaxy is known for its bright blue disk, which helps to indicate star production, and it also has these beautiful plumes of red hydrogen gas that are being jettisoned from the central part of this galaxy. This galaxy is classified as a starburst galaxy. It has nothing to do with the candy. Rather, we discovered that stars in this galaxy are being produced at a rate that is 10 times the rate of star production in our own Milky Way galaxy. And our own Milky Way galaxy did go through a phase wherein we produced hundreds, if not thousands, of stars all at once. But now our Milky Way galaxy generates less than 10 stars a year. This galaxy continues to maintain a high output of stars. And that's why we call it a starburst galaxy. We believe this is a result of this interaction that it has with surrounding galaxies. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you have learned something new. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below, or you may email me at gandrews@sciport.org. Stay curious.